Okay, what would happen if someday, 100 years from now, my own house was somehow considered historic and people could go on tours of it? That is really weird to think about. And why would anyone come to this house? Anyway, but what would that look like, right? So in this video, I've used this question to create sort of a fun, speculative skit starring myself and my 7-year-old, who I think is adorable. But it was so much fun. More than that, though, I'm going to use this little skit as a stimulus for conversation. So if you work at a historic site and you're looking to re-examine the kinds of information you teach on these history tours and in historic spaces, this video is definitely for you. Or maybe you just like to go to historic sites and you'd like to see a spoof of these kinds of tours. I'm not going to say this is SNL quality, but I tried to make it entertaining. I'm Andrea Jones. I'm a museum consultant. I help museums and historic sites improve the way they tell stories and engage visitors. I also help museum leaders focus on doing work that really matters. I've also worked at several museums and even given tours in costume. Needless to say, I've seen a lot of history tours. So I thought it would be fun to make this skit sort of a spoof about some of the tropes I see on these tours. See how many you can spot when you watch it. Now, short caveat, I did make this skit about a year ago, so me and my kiddo look just a little bit younger. All right, so let's get into it. And stick around because at the end of the skit, I'll be discussing 2 big tips for historic houses and other living history sites to improve these tours. Okay, here goes. See what you think. Welcome to the Andrea Jones house, where you can learn what it was like to live way back in 2023 in a middle-class home. This is going to be a fully immersive, hands-on experience, so I hope you're ready to have some fun. This house was owned by Andrea Jones and her spouse, Kara. They had one child named Winslow, who would have been about 5 or 6 at the time that we're interpreting. Now we are standing in what would have been their kitchen in 2023. Quite a bit different than your kitchen at home, right? Are you wearing what they used to wear? Yes, in fact, I am dressed exactly how they would have been dressed back then. In the 2020s, there was a pandemic, and all of a sudden everybody started wearing something called athleisure, which was very, very comfortable, soft, and a lot of these elastic pants. But your shoes look like the shoes we wear today. The museum makes us buy our own period-appropriate shoes, and frankly, I can't afford them, so here we are.
What's that smell in here? It smells dead.
Yeah, the smell, right? I just made microwave popcorn in our historic microwave oven. It comes out of a bag.
Can we try some?
No, sorry. That's against health regulations. But don't worry, it won't go to waste. The staff is going to eat it later. Now I want to draw your attention to this household item. Does anyone know what this is? A really old food printer? Nope.
Is it robot storage?
Nice guess, but no. This is actually a dishwasher. Oh wow, it's so big. Yeah, good observation. This is very big. Now, dishwashers were invented in 1886, and 137 years later, well, they were still using water to clean their dishes. So 2.5 gallons is what it took for this particular model to clean a load of dishes, which is a lot less than the first dishwashers, but still, what a waste, huh? All right, let me show you how it works. This is actually still a working machine, believe it or not. It is made by a company called Bosch, and it was actually one of the more expensive models of the day. In fact, we're not really sure how Andrea and Kara afforded it. but we did find an email from September of 2014 from Kara to Andrea indicating that they were going to buy a GE dishwasher, which was half the price of this one. So we're not really sure why they upgraded. Isn't that fascinating? So Andrea would have eaten some popcorn and then rinsed off her bowl in the sink, right over there. I know, more water. And then she's going to load it into the dishwasher. It's called loading the dishwasher. And you put your plates and your bowls in between these tines, and then the water comes up in between them and rinses them off. Now here comes the interactive part. Who would like to load the dishwasher?
Me.
So as they ate, Andrea and Kara would have to load the dishwasher by hand. And then when it was full in a few days, they would put in a detergent pod like this.
Can I load the detergent pod?
Oh, sure. Now, after they turned on the dishwasher, it would take about 2 hours to get clean dishes. Are you serious? Wow, I could not imagine. Honey, aren't you glad that we live today? Then, where the dishes were clean, they would have to unload the dishwasher, putting each item into their cabinet by hand. They did not have robots like we have today. Sometimes I just wonder how they kept up at all. And get this, some items, you couldn't even put them in the dishwasher. Yeah, they had to wash them by hand.
Oh, can we hand wash the dishes?
Oh, sorry, no, this is actually not a working sink, and I'm not actually sure how they hand wash the dishes. Well, thank you so much. This was really enlightening. So, what do you think? Would you like to live here in this time period?
Yeah, I would load the dishes and eat popcorn all day.
Would you? I hope you enjoyed my very amateur dramatization of a future tour of my house after I'm long dead. Thanks to Winslow, my real life kid who was 6 back then, now 7. We had a lot of fun making that. Now I'm going to take a few minutes to talk about how that sort of tour can be made a little bit better. I have 2 big tips for you for historic site managers, docents, educators out there. But let's first set the stage. So the big thing that I wanted to sort of poke at with this skit is just the tendency of historic sites, especially living history sites, where they wear costume, to focus on the extinct technologies or like the outdated work skills that people used to use in their daily lives. You often see visitors learning how to dip candles, how to type on an old typewriter, make rope, weave cloth. I could go on and on. Churn butter, right? And in my skit, the focus was on teaching visitors how to use a dishwasher, a sort of, modern day equivalent of those things, which seems funny, right? But I think that's kind of what we're doing when we show people how to make lye soap or whatever the skill is. Now, I do want to make clear, I do understand the appeal of teaching visitors about daily life in a different time period. I get it. There's oftentimes a hands-on component, which kids love. You saw that in the video. And people have a direct connection to the daily tasks because we still do some of these tasks today. We still do wash our dishes, just a lot slower, back in the past. But people sort of intuitively get the connection very easily. And also, and this may be a big one, we are fascinated with handwork. Today with all of our conveniences and technology, we're so removed from doing anything with our hands besides typing on a keyboard. So it can be really interesting to think about the craftsmanship required to knit our own sweaters or cook meals from scratch with the ingredients that we grow. But, here is the problem. So oftentimes these sites are not really situating these skills or tasks in a greater context of either history or our current day lives. It's just, here's how you do it. Here's all the steps for how to turn wool into yarn. The end. And I think sometimes that's okay, but I want to offer a couple of ways to get a little deeper and improve these chores. So here's the first tip. Use people's natural curiosity about hand chores of the past to ask some thought-provoking questions about today's world. By using the technology of work focus without context, we seem to be saying over and over again, look how easy we have it now. Aren't we lucky? It used to take them over 2 days to do laundry. And I've seen parents at these sites, sites where I've worked, say these exact words to their kids over and over, like they're supposed to have this profound appreciation for the life that they have now. That's why you saw in the skit the parent say this to the kid. But is that why historic sites exist? To make everyone feel lucky that they live today? I don't think so. I think there is something that we are not actively talking about when it comes to the interpretation of extinct technologies, and that is convenience. It has a price. When we use technologies to replace skills that we used to do by hand, there's something lost. We lose the pride and the investment of that accomplishment. As we were talking about before, it feels good to make things and fix things. Ask your visitors. So now what's another thing that we lose when we stop using our hands? We lose the meditative time that humans used to have as they sewed quilts and canned food. Our brains need time to putter. Another big idea you could explore, and I created an entire interpretive plan around this idea for one historic site. It's that convenience often comes at a huge cost to the environment. So think about it. If you could go back in time to the exact moment when electricity was discovered, how would you design our entire system differently? Would you still design it around coal? Would you start making wind farms? I don't know. Would it be any better for the environment if we all just burned candles and cooked over a fire? Ask your visitors. All of these inventions have made our daily lives much easier, no question about it. But I just love when a historic site asks or adds that extra little question for their visitors, like, is easier always better? When is it better and when isn't it? What do you think? Ask them. We probably wouldn't have had a women's movement if someone hadn't invented the washer and dryer. Think about it. But the point is, it's complicated, right? It wasn't worse back then. It wasn't better. We are still those people constantly in love with the next convenience. So instead of settling for teaching the basics of how they did it back then, use the novelty of the old way, that old technology, as bait. And then when you've got their attention, throw in another question or two to make it more thought-provoking. You want them going home and looking at their dishwasher in a whole new way. Okay, for the second tip, I want you to think about ditching the content focus on the daily chores and work altogether. That's right, lose it. And while you're at it, you could get rid of all that focus on the history of decorative chairs and table settings. Tip number 2, find a better story. Think about it this way. If a historian came up to you today and asked you, okay, so what's really important for the people in the future to know about your life today? What's it like to live in this era? What would you say? Would you tell them, hey, look, if there is one thing I really need folks 100 years from now to understand, it is how a dishwasher works? Probably not. Now, I'm thinking seriously about that question. What does it mean to live today? I mean, we just lived through a pandemic, right? I can remember using that exact kitchen counter, the same one you saw in the skit, to mix the solutions together after swabbing my nose for COVID tests to make sure that my family wasn't in danger, that I wasn't sick. That kitchen was like our chemistry lab on multiple occasions, and it was stressful. But also, the negative test helped make us feel safe in those early days of COVID. And we were so thankful that there even was a test. Remember that? And how many ethical dilemmas we had, when we made decisions about whether we were going to go out in public or see our families. Sometimes I didn't even want to take the test because I didn't want to know. Those details can be so powerful when the artifacts can be connected to real human emotions and anchored with the larger context of history. The point is not, how to use a COVID test. That is not the interpretation I would use, right? It's about the story of living during the pandemic and giving those objects an important role, that test an important role in connecting to emotion. We're going to bring visitors into the moment, step by step, saying things like, imagine it was Andrea's grandmother's birthday, so she went to a family gathering, and the next morning she woke up with a scratchy throat. She went to the kitchen to take a COVID test. What do you think she was thinking during the 15 minutes that she had to wait for the test results? I mean, okay, so that's a question even kids can help answer. Bring in an ethical dilemma. And again, make it about something bigger than just the one situation. If you can tell a story with specific people, specific circumstances that are, particular to that place, tap into that curiosity and that emotion. So while you might be thinking, well, hey, let's just try to make that dishwasher more interesting and meaningful. You could, refer back to tip number 1. But people have a limited attention span, as we know, right? So ask yourself, is this the story that you think will make the most impact? Is this the story that needs to be told? Because maybe you'll have a better story if you stop interpreting the dishwasher and think about the human drama that may have unfolded in these spaces. Something more personal than, this is how they used to do X, Y, Z. Think about it. Okay, folks, that is it for now. There are so many other things in this video that we could unpack. Like, why don't we let visitors eat what we cook? Why do we insist on sharing so many facts and asking so few questions? How do we appeal to kids without boring them? Let me know in the comments if there's something you'd like me to talk about next. Bye-bye.